Hello and welcome back, goats, to the BigBluePurple channel. As human beings, we're hardwired to pursue self-improvement and progress. Whether it be consciously or unconsciously, we spend each day working on bettering ourselves and learning more of the world around us. Many of the day-to-day activities we choose to engage with provide more growth to us than we may realize in the moment. Reading, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, we learn a lot more than we may realize through interacting with these mediums. So what if I told you that gaming was no different? What if I told you that video games could actually help us grow and become better people? In this video, I'd like to analyze community in video games, and how playing with others can improve our teamwork, problem solving, and social skills. I'd also like to talk about how through community, we can make our voices heard to developers, and help video games improve as a medium. It wasn't long ago that the World Health Organization officially recognized gaming disorder. This disorder is classified as a pattern of gaming behavior in which the player prioritizes video games over other potentially more important responsibilities. Not to mention all the politicians who seem to be convinced that video games are the sole cause of shootings in America, and surely it's nothing else. The point is, generally speaking, the media isn't a fan of video games, and they're doing everything they can to make parents think that video games are going to ruin their children's lives. But there's a reason more young people are playing video games now. It's because they're getting more out of these goddamn video games than the bullshit they have to put up with in their day-to-day lives. I'm sure I'm not the only one whose fondest memories of high school were ditching class with friends and not writing the 500 meaningless tests we had to write every week. I'm sure most of you would agree with me when I say that the community and the friends that we had around us in school were the most enjoyable aspect of it. Video games strike a great balance of forcing the player to learn something, while also providing memorable and life-changing experiences through its community. It all started with Minecraft when I was 8 or 9 years old. I had a fairly decent laptop that my parents let me use, and all my friends in the 5th grade were playing some goddamn Minecraft. It was only a matter of time before we were hopping on Skype with each other and playing on servers. I vividly remember the skyblock world my best friend and I had built at the time. We made pixel art of Pokemon and Dragon Ball and all sorts of other shit we could think of. The island was sick and we had a ton of fun making it. There's a reason I vividly remember this experience, but couldn't tell you a single assignment that I was assigned in high school. The human brain is known to unlearn information that it deems useless. It clears out unnecessary information to make room for useful and meaningful information. This is why most of us likely forget any of the assignments we even did because we forgot about them as soon as we handed them in. So why is it that my brain deemed the memories from high school useless, but the memories from Minecraft Skyblock when I was 8 years old significant? It was because of real growth and real learning. Through this experience with my friend, we grew together, we became closer, and through his shared experience, we had an unbelievably fun time. I learned how to play the markets on Minecraft Skyblock. I scammed people out of monster spawners to get rich and everything in between. I'd gained the experience having my own personal island I had to take care of. I learned the dangers of scammers and con artists who would trick you into giving them access to your island so they could steal all your important shit. And so I learned their tactics on my own. I learned how to scam other people and to build an even more impressive island. It never mattered to me how much progress I lost because I knew I could put the work back in and gain it all back and more. What I'm getting at here is that I learned how to work towards my goals at a very young age simply through playing Minecraft with the boys, even if scamming other 9-year-olds out of monster spawners may not be the most moral thing to do. I'm sure many others share similar memories of Minecraft and the creative freedom it provided to us, a stark contrast to the education system and how it suppressed our creativity. It was a world with no adult rules or regulations to stop us from being our true selves, a world in which we could let loose the fires of creativity and build constructs as high as our imaginations. The community of Minecraft helped me learn more than school ever did about real-world ideas and concepts. I learned how to be self-sufficient, I learned how to work with others, I learned how to pursue my own goals without anyone telling me what I needed to work towards. There were no due dates or requirements or anything forcing us to make this cool big-ass island, but we wanted to, and that sole desire to make a cool island kept us playing the game for years. I think we learned a lot about self-sufficiency and teamwork back in the Minecraft days, a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. Minecraft was a great game that taught us a lot of important things. While Minecraft may have helped me with self-sufficiency and personal goals, it was Destiny that truly optimized my social skills and teamwork. I'd played Destiny pretty much solo for a few months before I hit a wall. To reach max level, I needed to do the raid Vault of Glass, but it was a 6-man activity with no matchmaking. This meant I had to go out of my way to find 5 other players who wanted to run this shit. Thankfully, there was this website called Destiny LFG. It allowed players to make posts asking for help with raids. The thing with Destiny raids is that they require quite a bit of coordination and teamwork. It's pretty unlikely you'll clear the raid without using voice comms. Now, little 10-year-old me was horrified of talking to strangers on the internet, especially being that I was a 10-year-old squeaker. Stronger than my fear, however, was my will to reach max level. I needed Fatebringer, I needed Vision of Confluence, and I would acquire them by any means necessary. And so finally, I built up the courage to join a raid team, but I told them I didn't have a mic because I was too much of a pussy to talk. I would just join the party chat and listen to callouts and do whatever the other people were telling me to do, and it served me pretty well. I got like 3 or 4 clears without using my mic before I finally decided to plug in the stock mic that came with my Xbox One and start talking to people. It was only a matter of time before I started to meet my first online friends who I'd raid with on a weekly basis. I found other young people like me, and even some older teenagers who were cool and willing to help us out. I loved the Destiny community, and I looked forward to hanging out with the people I met on Xbox Live. I remember back in school, they told me it wasn't safe to talk to strangers online, and they're gonna come to your house and fucking assault you or some shit. I think this fear is what initially stopped me from talking to people on my first few raid runs. This was a key moment in which I realized I couldn't just always trust what the adults would say was true, because they didn't even know what was true. They told me online friendships weren't real, it's just a 45-year-old man looking for his next victim. Look at me now, motherfuckers, I'm still kicking it with some of the same fucking homies I met all those years ago. It's interesting too, because I feel having online friends, especially living in different countries, can provide a plethora of new perspectives on the outside world. I live in Canada, so even meeting friends from the United States, learning about time zones, about all the different fast food places out there. It was insightful, and it made the world feel so much bigger to me. Meeting friends from Europe and getting an entirely different perspective from outside of North America, I learned so much about cultural differences in the world at large from actually talking to people from those places. We can expand our worldview simply by meeting like-minded people all around the world. This is something that gaming makes possible for young people everywhere, and I think that's incredibly valuable. Now I want to talk about a particularly unique community, and one that I resonate with perhaps the most. This being the Dark Souls community. The reason I'd consider this community more unique than others is that the core of the game is not derived from the social aspect. In fact, the multiplayer functionality in Dark Souls is very limited. So how is it that a borderline single-player game creates such a dedicated and fantastic community? Several psychological studies have found that sharing experiences with others creates a heightened emotional reaction to the said experience. I think this is exactly what happens in the Dark Souls community. Dark Souls is a challenging game that demands the player to learn its mechanics before they can even make any meaningful progress. Each and every obstacle you overcome in a Souls game feels rewarding and gratifying, and every single person who plays Dark Souls must struggle before they can succeed. This shared struggle is what knits the community so tightly together. The build variety in Dark Souls is what really makes this special. If everyone had to use the same build and went through the same game, sure, it might be fun to talk about for a little bit, but eventually everyone's going to know what to expect and everyone's going to be talking about the exact same shit. But as a result of this build variety, everyone who plays the game will have a significantly different experience overcoming the same obstacles. You know, a sorcery build is going to go about solving problems a lot differently than a strength build. On top of this, players can read messages left by other players and also examine these bloodstains which show how another player died in that spot. These simple features create a sense of community that is absent in other games. You as the player don't feel alone on this journey. Other people have made it, and so can you. All this is not even to mention the amazing Dark Souls PvP community. They create their own competitive rule sets, fight clubs, and all sorts of other player-run events. Through shared struggle and triumph, Dark Souls has one of the most tight-knit communities and passionate communities I've ever seen in a video game ever. Now, Dark Souls is an amazing game with an amazing community, but it's Elden Ring in which I had some of the most memorable gaming experiences of my life. When Elden Ring came out, 2 friends and I pretty much no-lifed the game all day, every day for about a week. During this week, we sat in a Discord voice chat together like a bunch of fucking hermits bouncing ideas off of each other. I went here and found this. Did you guys check out that huge structure over at this part of the map? Holy shit, dude, I just got teleported to a fucking blood-red swamp. What the fuck? Subscribe to the BigBluePurple channel and you get a bunch of free runes. Okay, maybe not that last one. It was fascinating to see how each of our own unique methods of problem solving took us to far different locations than one another. There was so much to learn simply from discussing our discoveries in the game. I played a sorcerer on my first playthrough but couldn't find any spells. all I could find was strength weapons. On the flip side, my friend was a strength build who was only finding spells and no strength weapons. We were able to help each other find the necessary pieces to our builds simply by discussing our discoveries. What we can learn from experiences like this is that working with other people can greatly enhance the speed in which we can achieve things. You know, you got 3 people working towards the same thing, person 1 makes a mistake, and person 2 and 3 can learn from that mistake so they don't make it in the future. Person 2 makes a mistake, person 1 and 3 can learn from that mistake so they don't make it in the future. You understand where I'm going with this? There is strength in numbers. Overall, the launch of Elden Ring was seriously one of the best experiences in a video game I've ever had, and the whole FromSoft, Soulsborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring community is great. Now here it is, the part of the video where I finally get to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. The community in this game is the best fucking part in my opinion. Not only do we have the shared experience of the incredible story that keeps us tight-knit and invested, but we also have people crazy enough to form in-game bands, go around to major player hubs, and play music. I'll never forget the first time my friend and I stumbled upon a band of like 8 Lollafels playing Guess That Song, and paying people in-game money if they guessed it correctly. They had a huge crowd, it was a late Saturday night, and everyone was having a blast. It was like a social gathering in an online game to celebrate all sorts of video game music across the ages. This made me realize just how fucking cool the Final Fantasy XIV community could be. It also made me realize that for those who struggle with social anxiety or don't like large gatherings, they could find a sense of community and belonging within 14. And maybe, just maybe, this could inspire some of these players to work on their social skills and become significantly more confident in their real lives. Not to mention some of the cool conversations I've had with people in this game. There's this dungeon in the game called the Praetorium, right? And it's like got a ton of unskippable cutscenes and it takes 45 minutes per run pretty much. This gets pretty fucking boring once you've done it a few times, but it gives like insane XP and is a fantastic way to level up your alternate classes. Many times in this dungeon, I've had great conversations with other players in chat who are just as bored as the rest of us and want to socialize. Obviously, not every dungeon group you get is going to be a talkative bunch, but it's a nice treat when you get some interesting people to talk to every now and then. I'll never forget this one time in 14, I went down to a striking dummy in Lenosha to practice my Dragoon rotation. Someone else was there doing the same thing, and he sent me a message saying that he liked my weapon, he thought it was cool. This single interaction ended up spiraling into like a 3-hour conversation where we ended up adding each other on Discord, talking about all sorts of different games we liked, talking about what we wanted to accomplish in Final Fantasy XIV. It was a sick experience, and I've never had anything like it in any other game I've ever played. This is all not even to mention the raiding community and the amount of teamwork that goes into clearing Savage and Ultimate content. Learning how to work with 7 other players you don't know can be pretty daunting, but it can also be a very insightful experience, and it can help to improve your teamwork skills inside and outside of Final Fantasy XIV. You know, in school, they'd always put us in those group projects where they assign us with a bunch of random people we don't really like, but we have to work on something together. I assume this was to train us for work, where we're going to have to work with people that we don't really know. But I think Final Fantasy XIV raiding does a much better job at teaching us how to work as a team. If only we lived in a world where we could attend Professor BigBluePurple's class on how to clear Ultimate. Jokes aside, the 14 community is arguably my favorite in all of gaming, rivaled only by the Dark Souls community. So it's pretty clear at this point how games can help to improve our social skills, sense of belonging, and teamwork. But what about beyond that? Perhaps one of the most important aspects of a community is the voice it can create through the unity of its players. If a community isn't content with the decisions a developer has made, they can speak up and make it known to the people making the game. The most obvious example that comes to mind to me would be the Star Wars Battlefront 2 instance, in which EA removed loot boxes 24 hours after launch due to the outcry it caused. This is huge, and it goes to show just how much communities can accomplish through speaking up about issues they have with a game. Unless that game is Destiny 2, of course, because Bungie does not give a fuck what we think, they're rolling in the dough anyways. But hey, even in Destiny's case, sunsetting was a decision that had to be stepped back on because the community was so outraged over it. Unfortunately, that didn't stop like half the weapons in the game from still being sunset. But as a wise man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. This is where communities need to be careful differentiating criticism and harassment. The power of unity should not be used to harass developers, but rather to suggest improvements to a product that we, the consumer, want to like but aren't happy with in its current state. If you want to threaten developers, do it with your money, because in the gaming industry, money speaks far, far louder than words. Through gaming, we can establish new relationships, enhance our teamwork capabilities, grow our social skills, heighten our problem-solving potential, and make our voices heard. Community makes video games worth playing, and it makes them so much more to us than just simple entertainment. And don't think that this video is only praising multiplayer games. Single-player games can absolutely still create vast and welcoming communities with shared experiences and struggles. Good storytelling alone can be the grounds for establishing a loyal and passionate community. The point is, video games are more than just a silly distraction, more than just a glorified escape from reality. Video games can help us improve as people in all facets of life through numerous lessons they teach us in a variety of ways. Never let these senile politicians convince you otherwise. Video games are the future, and we can learn far, far more than we ever may have realized through the art form. Thanks for tuning into this video. Be sure to drop a like, but only if you did. If you made it to the end of this video, let me know your most memorable experience in video games. Now get out there and keep learning new shit from these goddamn video games.